Greetings, bike travelers and bike packers. Welcome to another episode of Chainwheel Diaries, stories about bike travel told by the travelers themselves. I'm your host, Brian Berlin. Like most of you, I don't like spiders. I'm not terrified of them, but I don't like them. My guest today, Andre Batista, had a spider experience while riding his bike in southern Australia. Seems Andre's spider wanted a ride, but Andre wasn't having any of it. This story is just one of many as Andre recounts his many bikepacking adventures. His stories are humorous, educational, and inspiring. Just a quick reminder, Chainwheel Diaries is available on Spotify and Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. The podcast is also available in video. So thanks for tuning in wherever you are, and please be sure to like and subscribe. Now let's meet Andre Batista. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Andre.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Tell us about yourself and where you are.
Oh, that's such a hard question. So I'm originally from Portugal, and then I lived in Australia for long enough that they foolishly gave me a passport that says that I'm Australian. And then I lived in the US for five something years, and now I'm back in Europe, and we'll see where I land next. I don't know.
Are you a full-time nomad or sort of a nomad?
I'm sort of a nomad. I like to go to places, kind of get a lay of the land, and then I get that little bug, and I need to go and explore other places. It's been great. I've seen lots of things. I've had a lot of experiences, met awesome people along the way, and yeah, it's just that thirst for exploration, I guess, and biking is always part of that. So.
You have extensive adventures, but first let's
Yeah.
start with how did you get started in bike travel?
Oh, yeah. So my very, very, very first bikepacking trip was when I turned 20. And, I knew how to ride a bike. I'd ride with my dad a couple of times, but, I wasn't an expert at all. So I did the south of Portugal that, now looking at it, it was only 300 kilometers, which is about 200 miles. And I had to do that over 7 days because, I just didn't have the fitness, I didn't have the equipment. And I actually borrowed one of my mom's massive hiking backpacks that had like a metal frame on it. And I think I had enough gear on that backpack to last, to do like two round the world trips. I had cassettes, I had two spare chains, like I had so much material on that thing. It must have weighed like 80 pounds on my back. So that was like the first one, and that kind of got like the bug start of like long distance riding and just exploring. And then soon after that, I moved to Australia. I got more into road biking, and then gravel was like when gravel started to show its signs, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I got a gravel bike, and then my first proper trip was one that's called the Mason Trail in Australia, and it starts in Adelaide, and like in the green, you start in the city, you climb the mountains onto like deep forest, and then by the time you finish, you're just in the desert, red dirt, so like the trail changing along the way, it's pretty cool. And that was really interesting. I had like lots of cool experiences on that one. And then after that, I did a couple of races. I did the Indian Pacific Wheel Race the year after. Tragically, Michael got clipped by a car. And then I did South Korea. I did another one in Australia. I did Portugal and Spain along the way, and then I moved to the US. I did the loop around Tahoe. Oh, I did a really cool one in Canada as well. Like you just like essentially ferry hop along the way. It was really interesting. Last year at Stagecoach, and I started the Tour Divide. It didn't go very well, but I started it. And then later last year, I also did the European Divide Trail, a portion of it, and that was also very interesting. So yeah, like I've had experience, in a few places.
Yeah, but the one I want to hear about is fighting a spider off your bike
Oh yes,
in
in
South
Australia.
Australia.
Yeah, so that was on the Mawson Trail, and Australia is known for the spiders, but it was big size spider, and it was in the morning. I was packing my bike, and I had this rolled up bag on the handlebars, and I was putting my tent in there, and the spider was just there, just chilling. And I saw it and I was like, ah, okay. So I grabbed like a little stick, and just like, flick it a couple of times, and eventually like I saw it landing on the ground. I picked the bike up. I ran like 30 feet away, looked back, I couldn't see anything, and I was like, okay, sweet. Leaned the bike against the tree again and continued packing the bike. And then, half an hour has passed. I've gotten dressed. I jump on the bike and I'm riding, in the first 10 minutes or so. And it was a gravel bike and it had the drop bars and I had my hands on the drops and I'm just riding along like nothing crazy. And the spider just crawls from under the roll-up bag on the front, the handlebar bag, and just kind of looks at me. And I was like, ah. So then very slowly come to a stop, and everywhere around me, you only had those little weeds that grow on the side of the roads. Like they have no purchase, like just a little twig. So like very steadily, I grabbed like a bunch of them, tried to twirl them a little bit, and then I was just like smacking the spider to see if it would like fall off the bike. And I must have been at it for like a minute. I think at the start, the spider must have thought that I was just like giving her a massage or something. Anyway, eventually the spider falls down. I grab the bike, I run, another 30 feet. I look back and the spider's on the ground, like trying to chase me. I was like, oh no. So I jumped on the bike and, two pedal strokes and I'm out of there. But yeah, that was really interesting.
The spider was looking for a ride,
Yeah.
obviously. In all these interviews, I hear about being chased by dogs. I had one gentleman who, in the dark on the Continental Divide, almost ran into a migrating herd of elk. And of course, there's always the bear stories, but a
Yeah.
spider story really sticks out, especially one that's really looking to ride with you
Yeah.
on your bike trip. Great story. So let's talk a little bit about some of the outside of the United States trips.
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with the European Divide Trail. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that was a trail that a gentleman created it. I can't remember his name. I saw the trail on bikepacking.com, and then he actually has its own website that has the routes, and he talks about the routes, and he gives some pointers on the routes. So it starts at the very tip of Norway, so pretty much where Norway meets Russia. So if you look at Europe, just there, and then it crosses all of Europe and finishes in Portugal in the very southern tip of Portugal. So it just diagonals across Europe. I believe it's 7,400 kilometers, which is about four and a half, five
Hmm.
thousand miles.
Yeah.
So it's quite long. If you start it in summer, at the very start of it, you have 24-hour sun because you're so close to the polar caps. So I didn't do the whole thing because I just didn't have time for it. I started in Denmark with the goal of getting to Portugal, but I had some knee issues, so I only got to Barcelona, which was about 2,500 kilometers, so just shy of 2,000 miles. And that was really interesting. So I covered Denmark, Germany, France, a little bit of Switzerland, and then Spain. So that was very interesting. And it's a route that a few people have tried it. There's actually a really fun video to watch of a guy that has the fastest known time to do it, and I think it's like 31 days or something like that. It's nuts.
Wow.
I think it's like 200 miles a day, for 30 days. And it's pretty cool. It's mostly off-road. It's pretty rough at times. I had a hardtail mountain bike, and a lot of times I wished I had a dual suspension, so it's definitely not a gravel bike territory. Yeah, it was a very cool experience as well.
I just interviewed Karen DeKent.
Karen is a common friend, and I actually rode with her a few times in San Diego, where I used to live. Yeah, we bonded over the fact that she was preparing the South Korea and the Japan trip, and I gave her some pointers. She did a different route because she was doing it through a company. My experience with the South Korea trip, I really, really loved it because it's so easy to do. So they've created an incredible infrastructure in South Korea, and they have these pre-made routes that you can just like follow the coast, go through the middle of the country, follow their four main rivers. And the route that I did was called the cross country. So it starts in Seoul at the very north of South Korea, and it ends at the south in Busan, and you cross the whole country essentially. It's I think it was about 680 kilometers, which is 400 something miles, and you cross the whole country. And I must have done. less than 5 miles on roads that had cars. Everything else was just on bike lanes and, isolated. Sometimes you couldn't even hear the cars. And then you have specific bike hotels along the way. So like it's insane. It's like the infrastructure is crazy. Like there was a day that I lost track of how many bike specific tunnels we rode by. It was really, really interesting. And then they had like a really fun thing where, yes, you have to buy a little passport, but I think it's like 50 cents. But you buy a little passport, and then along the way you have those, those phone booths that are iconic from the UK, those red phone booths, and each one has a little stamp. So then you have like your stamp mat as well, and you put a stamp on your passport saying that you've been to that location. And then when you get to the end, you can show your passport, and you're allowed to buy the medal that says that you've crossed the country. Again, you have to buy the medal, but I think it was like $2. And you just have like this really cool passport with all the routes, and you can see exactly where you've been. And then you have like a little medal to put on your wall, and that was really, really cool. And I did it many years ago, and ever since I've been itching to go back and to do the other routes that I haven't done yet. So that was really, really cool.
Between you and Karen, you've really sold the idea of bike travel through South Korea. It sounds fascinating. She had many of the same impressions, and you've added some additional color. Talk about some of your racing overseas, Madrid to Lisbon. What about that?
That was I had to get knee surgery, so I thought what better way to say goodbye to my knee in its current form than to fly from Australia to Madrid with my bike, ride my bike from Madrid to Lisbon, which was about 400 miles. And then I got to Lisbon, and a couple of days later I had knee surgery. So that was that. I just wanted to do something different because I wasn't gonna be able to ride for, a couple of months. So just farewell essentially.
The Tasmania Loop, not familiar with that. What can you tell us
Yeah.
about it?
So that one was essentially was the over the Christmas break. So in Australia, the seasons are opposite. So summer is in winter, if that makes sense. And we just took a couple of days with my partner, and we just went down to Tasmania, and we just landed in Launceston, and then we just rode around the islands. That was 1,200 kilometers, which is about 900 miles or so. And it was really interesting also because we did very little research for it. So, there was days that we thought it was going to only going to be like, 120 miles with maybe 3,000 meters of elevation, and it ended up being 12,000 meters of elevation. Sorry, feet of elevation. So, it's just like, oh, okay, more climbs, great.
Yeah,
So,
well, you can't plan for everything, and
no,
so that's part of the adventure. I'm also interested in, people rave about visiting Bali. You did a bike
mm,
ride there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So in Bali, it was with a company, and essentially we got there, and there was a tour guide, but we just rode through Bali, and it was so cool. We did one of the rides where they met us at the hotel, drove us pretty much to the base of a volcano, not a base, but like the middle of a volcano, of an active volcano. I think it had erupted a couple of years ago. And then we just rode down all the way to the beach, and we ended up having a couple of drinks at the beach at the end. And that was really cool. Like you just go through small little villages. We went through rice fields. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. And like Bali's very much alive all the time. So yeah, you can't hide from just things happening all the time. So that was really cool. And then I did also like a ride in the south of Bali, in a place that's called Uluwatu, which is a bit more it's a bit more quiet. And I just like rode around that as well, just trying to find things and views and things to do essentially. And that was really fun. It wasn't so much bike packing, but it was bike exploring. I wasn't camping.
One that I'm really interested in, and one that I'd like to do someday, is right here in Southern California, where I'm located, and that's the Stagecoach 400. It looked very challenging, but it also was fascinating.
So I did it last year, 2025. And from other people that had done before, it was one of the years that we had the best weather ever. So usually when they start, there's snow. at the very start, and there was one of the guys that he was on a fat bike, and I was like, oh, this is so different from, from previous years where everyone was behind me because I had the fat tires and I was carving a path through the snow for the people with like normal tires behind me. So yeah, it was really interesting, but it still started cold. It was like around 30 Fahrenheit by the time we started. And it's really fun because you start at the very top of the mountain where, generally there's snow, but you climb some mountains along the way, and then essentially you come down to San Diego City, and suddenly you're like by the water. You have people going to the beach, and it's pretty fun. And then you start climbing again up until the mountains, to the mountaintops, which is they're quite high. I think they're about 5,000 feet high, and you look back and you can still see the ocean, and the beaches and all that stuff. And you look ahead, and all you can see is just desert, and you're like, oh, okay. And then you have some crazy downhills to the desert, and you get to the desert, and you can never know what the desert is going to be like. Some years, I believe I've been told that it's quite fast to ride through the desert. And when I say quite fast, I mean you just don't dig into the sand, so you can ride over it. Other years, it's pretty soft and you can barely ride through it. Last year was one of those years where it was pretty soft and it was hard to ride, at least in my experience. So you have that first desert, and then you get out of it. You have about, I think it's 20 miles, maybe a little bit more of just road, or things that you can actually ride, and you get some good speed. You have one town, and then you get into another desert which feels longer and is just crazy. And then you have a crazy uphill that I had to push my bike. And then you start to get to the mountains, and then you just have to finish up in the mountains because you start and finish in the same location. And usually the routes, there's a bit of an H shape. So, the very fast guys can sometimes meet with the very slow guys along the way. It's a really fun ride. It took me a little bit over 3 days because I slept. Apparently, people don't sleep. I think it's a bit crazy, but anyway. And it was really fun. It was really, really fun. I had like lots of really cool stuff. Like the desert. The desert did a big number on me. Like, the desert was the toughest part.
Bikepacking.com is pretty specific about the kind of equipment you need for the Stagecoach 400. What kind of bike were you riding? How did you pack it?
I had my it's a Superior, it's the brand. It's a hardtail, carbon hardtail with 2.3-inch tires, 29-inch wheels, and then just a 1 by 12 from SRAM with a front shock. And then instead of having the straight handlebars, I put the curved handlebars. That's just because I like the extra hand positions and I just feel more comfortable on it. And then I had a saddle bag, I had a smaller frame bag, and I had aero bars on it because I was gonna take that bike for the Tour Divide. So, I needed that extra, and I had a little bag on the aero bars. So I was quite light. I can't remember exactly the weight of the bike. And then in terms of water, I had about 6 liters of water, which is about, I don't know what that is in ounces anymore. But I had about, so 6 bottles, essentially, as standard bottles of water, six to seven standard bottles of water. I had the Camelback as well. That was about it. Like I usually go pretty light because like I'm a bigger guy, so I don't need extra weight to slow me down on the uphills. So I try to keep the gear light, and the rule is that you don't take anything that can only have one usage. Like if you bring in something, it needs to be good for at least two things.
That's a good rule. Stealth camping or campgrounds?
Yeah,
How to
yeah. So the stagecoach for me, it didn't start very well because on the first day, I was mostly fine, and then towards the end of the first day, I started feeling sick. So I actually called it pretty early. I think I had only like 80, maybe 90 miles. And I was just like, I'm starting to feel sick. If I keep going, it's another 4 hours until I can get a bed again. So I'm gonna call it a night here. I'm gonna get a hotel. I'm gonna start early. And then I got into the hotel, I got some drugs, and I just took a bunch of drugs, set the thermo to the max, and I just sweated it all out. And then I woke up at 3 a.m. and I was just like, oh, I feel like a brand new person. Let's go. So then on that second day, I rode for like 18 hours, I think I was on the bike. So I did like a long way. So yeah, usually I try to do a bit of a mix. I do like the stealth camping. It's quite fun, but usually I need to stay indoors, 1 out of 3 days, I would say. That's a good average for me. Wash all your clothes, charge all your equipment, all that stuff.
The kind of tent, was it a one person, two person kind of
I've
backpacking tent?
Yeah, I've been a fond of bivvies for a long time. So a bivvy, it's essentially just it's almost like a sleep bag cover, and I have like a net over my face just because of mosquitoes and creepy crawlies at night. But it's extremely light. I think it's again, I don't remember the numbers in American units. I'm sorry, but it's around 350 grams, which is less than a pound. And then my sleeping bag, it's a summer sleeping bag as well, so it's quite light. And then my mat, it's a air mat, but it only covers my torso, and it has a couple of holes, so it's very, very light. So I think my whole sleeping setup is 1.5 pounds or something like that. So it's very, very light. If it's raining, I'm in trouble. But if it's not raining and if I can get a decent enough place to sleep, then it keeps it very light.
How do you like the interview so far? If you like it, please support my effort to keep publishing this podcast. The best support you can provide is to subscribe. That way you'll be notified when a new episode drops. Tell your friends, leave comments, share the link. These are all good ways to help me promote Chainwheel Diaries. Also, if you're a bike traveler, bike packer, or bike adventurer and you have stories to share, drop me a line, Brian Berlin at chainwheeldiaries.com. Link below. And thank you very much for listening. Now back to the show. Did you have a similar setup for the Tour Divide? And let's talk about that. Didn't turn out
Yeah.
well for you, but you started it.
So I had pretty much the same setup for the Tour Divide. I added one, thicker jacket for the Tour Divide that I didn't have on the stagecoach, just because I was afraid of, getting snowed in or, a big storm rolling by, something like that. So yeah, so that was pretty much exactly the same setup. It didn't go very well because and I found this out on the European Tour Divide, a couple months later. But essentially I was trying to be clever and to have double water bottles on the down tube, just to increase the water capacity. And that was just pushing my knees just very slightly out, and essentially created an issue for me that I've noted on the first day of the Tour Divide. And then I tried to do a few things to it. I didn't find out what the cause was. I tried to fix it in different ways, pedal in a different way, but it was the days were numbered essentially from day one. But the Tour Divide is a different beast. It's the caliber of people that show up there, and I mean, if you just look it up, last year Robin absolutely destroyed the records. Some people say that he doesn't have the record. To me, that doesn't matter, but like he absolutely destroyed the field, and you have like the highest caliber people doing the Tour Divide, and it's incredible just to watch what they can do in those conditions. And then for me, it's like the pros are pros, like they're quick, they've done this a lot, they're very fast. But to me, it's also the guys around like the middle to the end, because like those guys are out there for almost double the time that the pros are. The pros are doing it in 14 days. There's people doing it in 30. So 30 days, it wears you out. And I met a guy along the way. His name is Andrew, and he just started biking, not long ago. And someone told him like, "Hey, you should just do the Tour Divide." He's a long distance runner, and he's like, "Okay." So he just got a bike and just showed up. And what I really enjoyed about him was just the discipline. So he had the target of 100 to 110 miles a day every day. So it didn't matter if he did those 100 miles in 10 hours or 18 hours. He was doing those 100 miles every day consistently. And he got to the end and, feeling fresh, feeling good. And, I was in complete awe of his performance. Like, it was really, really good. He still did 26 days, I think, which is, in my book, it's quite respectable. So yeah, just the consistency, and that's something that's personally I still have to work on for those very long distance rides. It's just the consistency that gets you there and gets you the best result.
Would you do it again?
Yes, 100%. It's it's stuck. I have that stuck in my head now that I have to go back and, I have to redeem myself. More so because I know exactly what caused the issue, and I believe I have the mental fortitude to get it, to see it through. It's more just getting the body ready for it. And, I still think that I'm Superman deep down inside, and I can just, get up and run a marathon now, or, cycle through Europe without zero prep. I can't anymore. So yeah, I am definitely going back to the Tour Divides. It's definitely not this year. This year there's a lot of moving parts, but in the coming years I will definitely go back. But I'm going to put in at least a year of gym work and lots of small bike trips along the way, just to make sure that the whole body is fine. The mind is usually good, it's broken in the right way that will get me there. But yeah, just the body, just to get to the end, that's always the big if.
You mentioned something that I'd like to explore a little bit. Many of the people I ride with feel like riding 4 to 5 times a week is
Mm.
all the exercise they need. But I believe that you need to have some strength training as well. And it sounds like you feel the same way. What is your routine or what do you try to accomplish with that?
Yeah, definitely. So I've never been a fan of gyms in my life. Gyms, it's always been something that, I have an injury, I can't ride my bike, so I have to do a very specific exercise, and the physio just yells at me until I actually go to the gym and do it. And then after the Tour Divide, I came back to Europe, and I wanted to do the European Divide because I had a few months of, not doing much. So I joined the gym and I was there for about 3 months, quite regularly. I was doing gym like 4 times a week and just working on pure strength. Okay, so like you keep your form and you just try to do as much strength as you can, but then also stability. So you have those exercise balls and those half exercise balls, and you just get on top of it and just do squats with no weights. It seems easy, but everything is shaking. So it just uses a lot of your core and a lot of the articulations and ligaments and just strengthens that connection. So yeah, it worked really well for me. I felt stronger, and not so much the stronger part, but the fatigue was coming in only later in the activity. So for instance, you know, before the gym, I would just stand up on a climb and push. I would maybe last 30 seconds and I'll sit down and I'll be completely destroyed. After being a couple months in the gym, I'll do the same thing. I would still last the 30 seconds, but when I would sit down, I'd still had a couple of, legs in me to push and keep pedaling. So the durability it improved a lot, stability as well, and it just helps you feel a little bit better, especially around the core and lower back, I would say. That was the very important thing that I found that the gym really really helped with.
How did you deal with the altitude in Lake Tahoe for the Tahoe Twirl?
Oh, it was fine. We got up to what? We got up to I think 9,000. I was surprised I didn't get any altitude sickness or anything, but it was so beautiful, and I wasn't racing. I was riding along at my own pace with a little bit of a sense of urgency. I still had a calendar to make, but it was really beautiful. It was absolutely stunning. There was some parts of the trail that I didn't enjoy very much, like I don't know if you've looked into it, but the what is it, the west side of the trail, you actually go on the road with all the cars, and I just didn't enjoy that very much. There was not a lot of shoulder on the road, but it's stunning the whole time. And then the north part, there's a couple of trails that are pretty difficult, and one of the days I actually had four flat tires and I just couldn't seal a hole, and that destroyed my soul. But then the east side of the trail, it's absolutely stunning. Like you're on a single track that it's about yay wide, and this side it's like a sheer drop, and you're on that for I think it was like 8 miles of just that. And sometimes you want to go faster, but you kind of go like, whoa, if I fall, I won't stop. But yeah, it was just absolutely stunning.
I've ridden Big Bear, and the thing I noticed was it wasn't so much the altitude as the air is so dry. You seem to consume more water than you would normally. Did you
Mm.
experience that?
Yeah, in Lake Tahoe, not so much. On the stagecoach, I ran out of water a couple times, and that's never fun. Where did I do that? I did that in Mammoth. So after the Lake Tahoe, driving down back to San Diego, I stopped in Mammoth. I stayed for a night, and then I did the course of the Mammoth Tough. Like they do like a race there every year, and I did the course. And it's so bare, and you're exposed the whole time and still at altitude. So that one, yes, I ran out of water. And yeah, once you start running out of water, you start thinking about your life choices and okay, what's the next? Like, when can I get water next? I've had a couple of times, especially in Australia, when I wasn't as experienced that, I'd find like rocks on the side of the road. They had like a little dripping water and just like put the bottle there and just wait for 5 minutes for the water to fill up. Drinking from sources that most days you'd be like, oh, this is not a good idea. And yet on the Tour Divide, sorry to jump back, but on the Tour Divide, I had one of the best, natural flowing waters ever. There's a climb. It's essentially the last climb before you cross into the US. And it's a crazy climb. They call it the wall. And it takes you like 2 hours. You're just pushing the bike up a hill. It's absolutely crazy. And I wasn't so aware of it. So I had maybe 3 liters of water in me, and I was like, oh, there's a river here. Maybe I'll just get some water there. And it was sun and warm and nice, and I just got water and just drank a bunch of water, refilled everything, and I ended up using all of it. So if I hadn't stopped there, I would be in deep trouble. But that was like the tastiest water I've ever had in my life. It was incredible.
What advice would you give someone who's considering bike packing? And I'm discerning between bike packing and bike touring because bike packing really is backpacking on a bike. And just so weight is a big consideration, the strength of your rig, suspension, the ability to ride off road. But what
Mm.
advice would you give someone who's thinking of taking up some of these bike packing adventures like you have?
Yeah, definitely. So I would put bikepacking and bike touring, well, bike touring with support on completely different aspects. If you're doing bike touring and you have a van carrying stuff for you, it's nice, but you're essentially just going on an A to B ride. Bikepacking, you can do what we call credit card bikepacking, where you just stay in the hotels the whole time. I've done that. It's really nice. Or you can just camp and stealth camp, or what's that website, warm showers. It's a really good resource, Airbnb, like whatever you want. I very much like bikepacking more, even if it's credit card bikepacking. I really like that because it's just you, and you don't have to do a loop, or you don't have to do like a specific A to B. You can add a lot of creativity along the route, and I really enjoy that because it gives you so much flexibility. You can decide to, if today you only feel like riding 50 kilometers or 50 miles, you do that. Or if today you're feeling great, just ride more. So in terms of advice that I would give to people, don't get the biggest bags when you're initially buying your gear. Always go for at most the medium size bags. And if you can, start getting the gear that you think that you'll need first, and then buy the bags for the gear that you think you'll need. Because it's so easy to just add bags to your bike and then, oh, I have a little bit of space. I'll just put this tool in here. I'll just put this extra garment in there. And a lot of times you just don't need that. It's quite simple. It's quite simple. Bikepacking is quite simple. Are the legs feeling okay? Do you have water? Do you have food? When's your next stop? When's your next refill? Cool. Just push. Just keep riding. You'll get there. And I'm just gonna tell a very quick story, but on the Indian Pacific Wheel Race, so the Indy Pack, on the year that Mike Hall tragically passed, at the start of the race, I think it was the night before, they had a little get together, and the mayor of the city where the race started, he's a cyclist as well, and he just showed up just to give everyone a farewell and good luck. And there's a video online. I can't remember the guy's name, but he just goes like, "Look, guys, cycling is simple, okay? What you do is there's two pedals, and one of them is high, so you just push that one down. And as you push that one down, the other one comes up. So you would just push that one down. And he literally spends like 30 seconds just doing this. And then the other one comes up and you push that one down. And then the other one. And he just spent like 30 seconds on site just doing this. Everyone just cracking up, because they're about to embark on a 4,000-mile ride. And it's just like it kind of made it so simple. And that just stuck with me. Just pedal. In bikepacking, there's a lot of that. Like, sometimes you have 50 miles to go to your next restock. So just keep moving, just make sure that you have water, food. I find that in my case, keeping like the sugar levels quite high keeps me happy. And you just keep moving and you'll get there.
Good advice. What adventures do you have upcoming?
Ooh, upcoming. So again, this year it's a bit of a transition year. I want to do some stuff here in Europe. So the TCR, the Transcontinental, is definitely on my books. There's what's the other one? Is the Nordic 4,000, something like that. That starts in Sweden or Finland, and it also like comes down to Europe. The Tour Divides, I'm sure that I'll come back in a couple of years from now. There's one in Italy. I think it's the Italian Divide, which looks really fun as well. So it's a bit of a mix of, like road bikepacking, mountain bike bikepacking. Yeah, I'm not just doing one essentially. So we'll see how it goes. I doubt that this year I'll do anything very significant. I wanted to do the I think it's called Race Around Poland because it's run by a friend of mine, and he's an awesome person, and he's done lots. But I don't think I'll be able to do it this year. So we'll see next year.
You're doing a mix of bikepacking and racing. Do you prefer one over the other?
For different reasons, yes. So I like the freedom that bikepacking gives you. So again, if you only want to ride 50 miles a day, just do it. It's fine. When you're racing, you get that extra competitiveness, and it just depends on how competitive you are. Like I'm quite competitive, so I do feel that. And then you have the tracker, and you can see that, Mike that you've met like the night before, he's only 20 miles ahead of you. Like you can get Mike. Come on, let's get him. Like let's go. So when you're just soloing, you don't have that. So when I'm soloing, I kind of force myself to, stop at least 3 times a day, take specific photos that I want, or to get to like specific targets that I want. So yeah, they're very different. They're very different in mentality, in how you approached it. Racing is fun. I am competitive, which sometimes sucks because, like half of the field is probably the best I can do. But it's cool because you just start racing the people around you. On the first day, it doesn't matter because everyone is either, going crazy or going slow. You just don't know. But then after it settles down, you can go like, okay, I'm racing these guys. All right, let's go. And that becomes really fun, especially when you oversleep and then the next day you wake up and go like, how is he 50 miles ahead of me? Like, oh no, I slept an extra hour. Okay, let's go. And that's really, really fun. But again, like backpacking, like more leisurely, it's also great because you can actually sleep 8 hours. If you have a little pot, you can do some coffee or cook some food, warm food, in a really nice place that you can enjoy. So yeah, like there's benefits, like when you're racing, it's normal for you to sleep in a disabled toilet on the floor. That's quite normal. When you're bikepacking, you usually don't do that.
I would agree. Where can our listeners find you on social media?
Ooh, I have an Instagram that I barely touch, and then I have a Strava where whenever I go for a ride or any kind of adventure, I put my stuff there. I had a YouTube channel for a very long time that, I created some videos about biking, and one of the videos actually got a lot of views. It was just like how to tune your Shimano derailleur, and it has a lot of views. But yeah, I'm not very social in that aspect.
That's okay, but be sure and share those links with me after the interview. Andre, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and I
Thank you,
appreciate
Brian.
you accommodating our different time zones. And I wish you the best in your future adventures. Maybe our paths will cross someday.
Just to tag along with in one of Karen's adventures, and I'll see you somewhere.
No doubt about that. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian.